I truly believe that success in creative business comes
Mm,
down to the mindset and the skill set of the leader. And honestly, it's 80% mindset. And
mm,
so, what really been focused on is not just tactically, what does a business look like and how do you do sales and marketing and finances and all that stuff. It's like, what's the mindset that helps somebody be good at those things so that they have the desire to go learn how to improve
mm.
and grow their business so that they can get better at their craft, their skill set, right?
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that has grown several startups into 7 and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And if you ever need help with yours, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. So today we've got another great guest on the episode, Darren Smith. And Darren, just as a little bit of an introduction, so he's been in the creative industry for a lot of his career for 15 years. Started out in the music industry. I think he said you toured with some bands, including Imagine Dragons. Is that right? So, which is a cool band. Anyway, I think Imagine Dragons has their Utah origins or whatnot. So did that for a while. Got into film production, and then from film production, as that kind of wound down, you then started your own creative agency, and have been doing that and had to make some adjustments and some pivots due to COVID, as you're doing, or as everybody's having to. And that kind of gives you a brief introduction. And with that, welcome onto the podcast, Darren.
Hey, thanks so much. It's really great to be here. Appreciate the time.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. So I gave a very brief introduction. I'm sure didn't do anywhere near justice. So let's take you back. Let's go back to when you started out your career and you're graduating and doing all the cool things that sound fun with music and bands and college and all that. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, I've been a creative in the music and film industries for as long as I can remember. I was in bands that I helped start in high school, and we toured and we played professionally, and we were in jazz festivals and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and then played and did a lot of that stuff in college. And really, college was the pivot point because I really realized that playing saxophone for a profession was not going to really give me the kind of lifestyle that I wanted. I saw the trajectory with my instructors and was like, that's not what I want to do. So I
Hmm.
pivoted there and got into doing live sound and, doing music for bands and doing live events and stuff. Really loved it. Got into a venue here in Provo and started running sound. And that's where I met bands like Imagine Dragons and Neon Trees. They all got their start here in Provo, Utah at Velour Live. So I was a sound guy there for like 10 years. And during that time, really pivoted from doing touring and live sound and doing post-production sound for film. And it
Hmm.
was around 2006, 2007 that I was like, okay, I'm all in on the film thing. It's super fun. I
Hmm.
was doing sound design for film. So I was like making things blow up and making people crunch when they hit the ground. And like, it was just so cool that I could not turn it down. And like the hours were so much better. I was working a 9 to 5 instead of like a 5 to 2 a.m. or a
Hmm.
24/7 when I was touring with Neon Trees. So it just really fit because around that time I was getting married. I had my first son,
Hmm.
and it was just such a better lifestyle. So from doing sound for film, I got into writing and producing, and that's really where I spend most of my time now. I'm a film and TV producer.
So
I do a lot of
before you
writing.
jump too far, just a couple questions. I'm going to jump back. So you did, first of all, you started out with bands, right? And did music for a while.
Yeah.
Is that as cool as it sounds to work with the fun bands, or is it a lot more boring once you do it enough times? Just was curious, when you hear all the fun names, it's like, oh, that's got to be a fun job, or it's cool to see all the concerts. Or I can see it's like, I've heard this music, I've heard a concert, I've seen this so many times, it loses some of its savoriness.
Having my start as a performer,
Hmm.
it felt like being a fifth or sixth member of the band for me.
Hmm.
I could tell when a crowd was responding to a certain push of a certain fader or a tweak of
Hmm.
EQ or reverb or whatever it was I was doing. And it really felt just fully amazing every hour, every minute of the day. I loved it. It was really hard to say no. I was invited to go out on tour for an entire year with Neon
Hmm.
Trees, but it was right as my son was being born. It's like, I'm not going to be gone 10 months out of 12 in his first year of life. It's just not the kind of dad I want to be. So I turned it down, and then I did a couple of one-off shows for them and Imagine Dragons and people like that. But it's a blast. It's a ton of fun, but it's also a lot of work. It's tiring. You're on the road. It's long days, long nights, late hours. It's a lot. So, and sleeping on a tour bus, not my favorite, but it did teach me how to sleep through literally anything. And that served me well when we were having kids and I had to figure out how to sleep in a hospital with delivery room. Right. So
that's fair
pros
enough.
and cons to all of it.
So now you see, so that, first of all, that sounds interesting. It just sounds like it'd be a ton of fun to be able to go on tour. But to your point, it is a lot of work and on the road and other drawbacks to it. So you say, okay, we're going to make the transition from music industry, or at least touring, over to now sound design from films and that. How did you make that leap or that jump? Did you put out your shingle, put out your resume, and just happen to find one? Or did you start on your own? Or kind of, how did you say, okay, I can't be on the road all the time, I've got my kid coming, I still want to be in the creative space? So how did you make that jump?
The short story was just networking and being open to opportunities. And so I was already kind of getting into post-production sound, but I had this new resume line item of like, I toured with Neon Trees nationally, like shows that were 15,000 people, right? So like I was at a certain level that people could go, oh, he knows what he's doing behind a soundboard. And so I got into doing post-production sound while in school. That's where I did like my internship, and I started pivoting into film even in college. So it was kind of a dual thing that I was doing. The job that paid me the most was doing post-production sound, but I loved doing the live sound. And then I ended up going on a tour. So it was just kind of a natural progression of things. And I think the big takeaway for me was I knew what I wanted my life to look like. I knew how much time I wanted to be home and be present with my wife and kids. I knew how much money I wanted to make. I knew how much I wanted to travel or not travel. And it was just a progression of like 4 to 5 years of strategically going, if I take this gig and start doing post-production sound at this place or with this client, that's going to lead me in this way. Whereas if I take this 10-month tour with Neon Trees, it's going to take me this way. And it was just, there were a couple of moments in a 5 or 6 year period that I was just like systematically just kind of going this way, this way, this way, this way.
No, that makes perfect sense. So now you did that. You made the transition. You said, okay, going to go from touring to the film industry. You did sound production for a period of time, and then you got more into the actual film producing and some of that. Was it a worthwhile transition? Did you love it as much as touring? And how did that go for making that transition?
It was definitely worthwhile because I went from being a vendor, so to speak, to being a business owner. And that is a huge lesson in my life, to where I wasn't dependent on a single source of income anymore. I wasn't just a vendor. I wasn't a contractor for Neon Trees. And if they decided to cancel a tour or postpone a tour or something happened, I'd be out of a job. It's the same way I didn't ever go and try to join corporate America, because I'd never wanted a single point of failure, which is another term for a boss. I just didn't want somebody to have that much control over the trajectory of my life to where they could decide what I got paid, what hours I worked, and whether or not I had a job tomorrow. And it just felt too risky for me. So I really enjoyed the pivot to owning and running a video production company, because I was in control and I could affect, if we wanted to get more clients and make more money, I could do that. I could turn that knob or put some pressure on that lever, and we could have more clients. And if I wanted to scale it back, or if I wanted to only focus on high quality clients, I could fire people. I could say, you're not a good client. You don't pay on time. We don't work together anymore. And so I really, really enjoyed it. That was probably the pivotal moment, was deciding I want to be a business owner. I want to have complete control and freedom. And yeah, there's other risks involved, but I'll take those over the risk of being able to get fired or get let go or any of those kind of things.
No, and I'm a big proponent of it, and I've done my own startups. I've done, or started my own firm. But, it's interesting. You always hear, well, it's more risky or it's less secure. And I always look at it and says, yeah, but big businesses lay people off all the time. You work for somebody else. They may not manage it any better than you could. And so there's, you look at their risk. But I like kind of what you said. It's a nice. You're saying, I just don't like working with this client anymore. They're not fun. They don't pay their bills on time. They're a pain to always work with. They always want changes. They always want this. They're always running us over costs. We're writing things off. You're saying,
Yeah.
I'm just not going to work with them anymore. And when you're in the driver's seat, when you're no longer, or somebody else is, in control, but you control it yourself, it makes it a lot easier to actually have that, captain your own destiny. So you went from doing, touring in bands, went and worked for the film production, then did your own creative development company, and have been doing that. And you're still doing that. Is that right?
Well, it's I'll reframe that a little bit, because I think we're losing the context or the accuracy with the terminology, but that's probably my fault. So no. So
fair enough. Correct me where I'm wrong. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
So in 2017, the end of 2017, I left that business. I had a business partner. The business wasn't doing well. The partnership wasn't working out. We're still like best friends, but the partnership was not healthy. So we stopped. I left. And in 2018, I realized that as much as I enjoyed the control and freedom of owning my own business, I wasn't doing a very good job running a good business. So I took a very conscious effort and made some goals and said, I'm going to figure this out, because I want to get to the point where I know how to start businesses. I know how to run businesses. I know how to grow businesses. And it was a 2 or 2.5 year period of just really focusing my effort on what's the thing that's holding me back now, and then fixing it. And if I didn't know how to fix it, then I went and figured it out. And so over this period of time, so much research and seminars and courses and coaching and all this stuff that I went through, I realized how important it was for people like me in my situation to understand all these basics that a lot of people go to an MBA and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for. Well, I did it in 2 years with like YouTube and courses and maybe 10 grand worth of expense. So when COVID happened this year, the TV show I'm a senior producer on got postponed. So I was furloughed over the summer, and I found myself in a good situation where I was like, okay, I've got money because I figured out my business over the last 2 years. We've got a little bit of time, and I don't have any pressure to like go and find clients right now. So I could do this. Like I had this idea where I wanted to help other creatives and freelancers and small business owners figure out all the stuff that I figured out, because I like teaching, I like writing, I like sharing, all that stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I built a online course platform / coaching platform called Craftsman Creative, and basically started putting out content that helps people like me who want to figure out how to build like a resilient, profitable business to support the creative work they're doing. Like, here's how to do that. I'm just going to teach it to you. And I just put out courses, and then I started producing courses for other people and putting them on the platform. And then I built an app to support people who are doing it, because they need a tool to be able to track this stuff and focus their efforts. And that's kind of been what this year has been about. I've still done film and TV production. I've still been producing courses. I still do a lot of that work, but it's now in a kind of new and expanded context. So it's really focused on how can I contribute the most to these people that I really care about and really want to serve. Because as we've talked about, all of my friends are musicians and filmmakers and writers and photographers, and they're the ones who got hit really, really hard this year. The gig economy is still not recovered. So a lot of my friends are just like sitting and waiting, and they're on unemployment and they're taking jobs, but there's no jobs. And like, it's been a hard year. And so I found myself in this situation where I could legitimately, sorry, I've got my phone call coming in, because I'm using my phone as my camera. So that's the downside there. But I don't even know how to turn it off because it's in like a camera mount or whatever. But that's what this year has been. And it's been really, really, really fulfilling, because I've got a business that's growing because of all this work. And I'm able to focus on external things and not so much my own life, my own income, my own business. It's really I've been able to focus on all the people I care about and serving them and helping them. But the money is kind of secondary. Like, they pay me, but it's not about making money. It's about serving and helping. And that's been the really great part about it all.
No, and I think it's interesting is you as you go through your journey, but as you also said, hey, these are the skills that I need to do. Let's figure out business development. That's part of running a business. Let's figure these things out, how to help others. And then you to say, okay, now there, first of all, there's a business here and helping other people to learn the same things I did, because, you know, it seems like not always, and you get that good mixture, and it sounds like you've reached it. A lot of times, if you're on the creative side, you're awesome at creative, but terrible at the business side, or you can be great at the business side, but it's hard to be creative, because really, you know, kind of takes both sides, you know, two different mindsets almost, and be able to switch between them can be a difficult thing. And I think it can be learned, but it's certainly not that natural or intuitive. A lot of times you can be naturally a business or naturally creative, but to learn that other side of it can, I think, is a great endeavor. And it sounds like, you know, is one that is bridging, you're helping to bridge that gap. So it's now you figure this out, you've taken COVID, you've kind of stepped back, said, okay, I've learned these things. Now, how am I going to create a platform, share it to others, help others to kind of learn the same things I did, and be that good business person, not just a great creative. So now you take that, where, you know, looking at the next, and I know it's hard with everything going on, but 6 to 12 months, kind of where do you see things going next for you?
Yeah. I want to quickly touch on what you just said, though, because it's been top of mind for me, trying to analyze and figure out what is it that's keeping the creative and artistic people from building these kind of businesses. And what I realize is that when creative people are stressed and their business isn't working, or they're not getting enough clients or enough work, their answer is, well, I just need to do more work. I need to get better at my work. And they focus on the thing that they know, which is their art and their craft and their work. And the reality that I'm sure you know, and a lot of people listening to this know, is that the execution, the craft, the work is only going to get you so far. And there's a cap to that. And I found that it's about $150,000. After talking to hundreds of creatives this year, even the ones that are doing really well from the outside looking in, you talk to them about, well, how's your business going? They're like, dude, I've been stuck at 140, 150K for 3 years. I don't know how to get past it. It's because they are approaching their business as a creative person. They're thinking, well, I just need to get better. And that's not necessarily the case. You need to get better at something else, which is the business. And so I've been really focusing on helping them understand how businesses work, that there's systems at play and they're interactive, and you do something over here and effects over here. And so I wanted to touch on that because it's super important, especially if there are creatives and artists listening, that like doing more work, doing more art is not the answer when all of the stuff that happened this year took your business out from under you. It's figuring out, how do I actually approach the business in a systematic way? So to answer your question, what's this next 6 to 12 months look like? You know, I am so excited about the next 6 to 12 months because I had the blessing, and I know that it's like a privileged situation to be in, where like I had time from March to now of this year where I could put in time and effort on this thing. And I didn't have to make 10 or 15 grand a month with my business in order to support my lifestyle. Right. So I was able to just kind of get by, and we were able to do PPP loans, and we were able to do SBA loans, and we got grants. And like, we were strategic about the way that my wife and I, who are both creatives and own our own businesses, were able to fund them through these kind of programs and opportunities. And it's given us all this time to build. And so this year has really felt like an uphill climb with like a 50-pound backpack on. And it's been hard. There's just been so much building and effort and execution. But I knew that like at some point I'm going to have to go back to work, and I'm going to have to go make money again. Right. And so I'm like, I'm just going to go all in on this, because I had a couple of signals that like, this is going to work. There's enough signal from enough sample size of people that like, if I build this, it could get big. So I kept going and going and going and building and building and building. And it's really just been in the last like 2 to 3 weeks. So after 8 months of building, where it feels like, okay, I've been going uphill for 8 months, but it just kind of flattened out. So it got a little bit easier. And now it almost feels like we're rounding a corner and it's a downhill slope. And I'm going to have a little bit of momentum and wind at my back, or it's just going to be easier to keep making progress. So what it looks like technically is that I'm producing more content for Craftsman Creative. I've got bigger partners that I'm partnering with to produce courses for them. So people with followings in the 50 to 200,000 followings instead of the 10 to 15,000 followings. So that's leverage. That's just even the next step of like, you execute well, and then you start implementing some systems, but then you start putting some leverage at play, and the same amount of work gets you 10 times the results. So that's what the next 6 months looks like. And then with this app that we built, it's called Benchmark. And that's something where, we built the infrastructure, we built the app, we built the website, we have a marketing channel that's starting to generate leads at a pretty profitable amount. So that's a matter of scale, and then doing version 2, and then turning it into a SaaS app, and all those kind of things happens in the next 6 months as well. And so I'm feeling the momentum and like all the energy that's going forward now, which is very exciting. And I'm super excited and curious to see what 6 to 12 months looks like. Cause I know I can kind of see 0 to 6, but 6 to 12, I have no idea. It could be a nice lifestyle business, or it could be like, man, we can scale this thing. We could grow it. We could sell it. We could reach tens of thousands of people. Like, I just don't know.
Hey, that's fun. Part of the fun of the journey is figuring or seeing where it goes and what the opportunities lie, and then pivoting and adjusting accordingly.
Yeah.
Well, as we start to wrap up towards the end of the podcast, I always have and there's always more things I want to talk on and go through, and there's never enough time, but someday I'll have more time, and we'll have to circle back. But as we wrap up, I always ask 2 questions I ask towards the end of the podcast. So why don't we jump to those now? So the first question I always ask is, within your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
You gave me the heads up on this one, and I didn't spend enough time thinking about it. So now I have to kind of think back. The worst decision I made was actually postponing a decision or abdicating a decision. I think the thing that held me back the most in the last decade or 15 years of doing this stuff, owning my own business, was sticking with a partnership longer than I should have, because the writing was kind of on the wall around 2014, 2015, but we stuck with it and we kept going. And that business never did more than like 165 grand in a year. But there's 2 partners who are 50-50 partners who need to provide for families of 5 each, right? So I should have made a choice earlier, 2, 3, 4 years earlier, to leave that business, strike out on my own, and really go. Because what happened after leaving that business, and by no means am I saying my business partner was at fault.
No, absolutely.
Making that,
I think that on that, there are times that you can be great friends, both people can be talented, and you just don't mesh well. So absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah, the business just wasn't working. And so had I, what happened after 2017 is I went and doubled my revenue in 2018, and then doubled it again in 2019. And had I done that in 4 years, 5 years earlier, three or 4 years or whatever it was, I could have been even closer to the goals and the things that I wanted to achieve for myself and my family, instead of having to go through the worst financial year of my life in 2017 because of that business. I was trying to keep it afloat through loans and debt, and it just, really kicked me in the butt. So that was the worst decision, was just postponing a decision that was really important I should have made it 2-3 years earlier.
No, and I think that there's a lot of wisdom in learning from that, because oftentimes you're saying, I don't want to have to deal with it, or I don't want to make the decision. I'll just, we can figure it out and work through it. And sometimes those hardest decisions need to be made, and the longer you postpone them, the worse it gets. So, and I also agree with to your point, it's not bashing on a business partner. You have some partners that they're talented, they want to do it their way, and the way they want to do it is just simply not the same way that works for you. And so both of the ways are good, just not combining them are not always good.
Yeah.
So now the second question, which is, talking to someone who's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I mean, selfless plug, I would say go check out Craftsman Creative, because that's exactly who we're targeting. It's really all the work I've been doing this year is to help people like that, who are just getting started, or honestly, who have been doing it for 3, 5, 10 years, and they're still not happy with the results they're getting. And here's the podcast version of the answer, which is, I truly believe that success in creative business comes down to the mindset and the skill set of the leader. And honestly, it's 80% mindset. And so what I've really been focused on is not just tactically, what does a business look like and how do you do sales and marketing and finances and all that stuff. It's like, what's the mindset that helps somebody be good at those things so that they have the desire to go learn how to improve and grow their business so that they can get better at their craft, their skill set, right? Because the tactics, yes, they matter. The systems, the tools, all of that is important. But if you don't approach it with the right mindset, and by mindset, I mean like global belief system. Are people good or bad? Am I inherently valuable to the marketplace? Do I have something to offer people? Like all this goes into mindset. And if you don't have a mindset that allows you to show up every single day and have fun doing the work that you claim to love, then you're going to just struggle all the time. And that's no fun. I was there in 2017. I was showing up to work every day and it sucked because my mindset was wrong. And so that's the big thing. It's like focusing on the mindset, being able to understand that you can get better at it. It's a muscle, it's a decision. There's all this stuff that plays into mindset that if you get that right, all the other stuff is actually pretty easy. And so that's where we're focusing a lot of my time and my team's time, and the business's focus is on helping artists, creatives, freelancers, small business owners with their mindset and their skill set to help them grow their businesses and get the results they want for them and their families.
No, I think I think I certainly agree with that. So now that makes a perfect transition from the shameless plug into, if people want to reach out to you, they want to connect up to you, they want to use your product, they want to be your next employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to connect up with you or learn more?
Best way, honestly, is on Twitter. So at Darren T. Smith is my Twitter handle, and I'm very accessible there. My Twitter handle is at Darren T. Smith, but the name on there is my email address, which is darren@hey.com. So I'm open and available. I don't get 1,000 emails a day. And so I'm still in the place where like, you can email me and I'll talk to you and it's fine. But if you're at all intrigued at anything I talked about today, check out craftsmancreative.co. And that's where all the courses and stuff lie. But the thing I'm really excited about, and I think is going to be beneficial for the audience, is if people go check out build.craftsmancreative.co, I put together a amazing coaching platform or program for next year, which really just systematically covers everything I talked about today, everything I've learned over the last 15 years of running and owning a creative business and helping people do the same next year. So Craftsman Creative is really the thing that I'm building. And then, reach out to me if you want to learn about the app. I'll tell you about all that stuff. Just say hi. I love talking.
Hey, I appreciate that. And I certainly encourage everybody to reach out, find out more about Craftsman Creative, reach out to you on Twitter and any other avenue that they can find. Well, Darren, it's been fun to have you on the show, and it's been a pleasure. Now, if you're a listener, make sure to, if you have your own journey to tell, we'd love to tell it. So feel free to go to inventivejourneyguest.com, apply to be on the show. If you're a listener, also make sure to click subscribe on wherever you listen to the podcast so you get notifications as all the awesome episodes come out. Last but not least, make sure to, if you ever need help with patents or trademarks, go to Miller IP Law. You can sign up at strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Thank you again, Darren. It's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode of The Inventive Journey, make sure to go and check out Startups Magazine. They're an awesome magazine and podcast centered over in the UK. And if the magazine is a digital and print magazine where they focus on tech startups and entrepreneurs, and they also have a focus on female founders and women in tech. So if you want to check out their magazine, either digital or print, it's Startups Magazine, startups with an S, magazine.co.uk. And you can also look up their podcast, which is called The Serial Entrepreneur. So go check them out. They're awesome, and definitely if you like this episode, you'll like them.